Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, director, writer, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is JC MacKenzie, an actor who's been in absolutely everything. He can currently be seen playing prosecutor Jimmy Neal in The Irishman, which marks his fourth feature with Martin Scorsese after The Aviator, The Departed, and The Wolf of Wall Street. He's turned up in Spike Lee's Clockers and He Got Game, in Aaron Sorkin's Molly's Game, in the upcoming Trial of the Chicago 7, on shows like Hemlock Grove and Vinyl and Madam Secretary, really everything. And he co-stars with Tamara Taylor as married monster hunters in the mildly goofy new Netflix series October Faction, which just dropped on the service last Thursday. JC picked 1917, Sam Mendes' World War I drama presented as a single continuous take that follows two young soldiers on a mission through no man's land to save thousands of their British comrades from a German ambush. George McKay and Dean Charles Chapman are the leads, with Colin Firth, Andrew Scott, Mark Strong, Claire Dubuque, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Richard Madden appearing in smaller roles. Showered with awards and nominations this season, it's just received 10 Oscar nods, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Cinematography for Roger Deakins, and Best Original Screenplay from Mendes and Christy Wilson Cairns, who's a friend of the show, and how about that? Also, I should caution you that while 1917 moves in a straight line, this conversation does not. But stick with us. We get where we need to be. This is Someone Else's Movie.
Just came out. I just saw it 2 days ago. I thought it was interesting. I think Sam Mendes is a great director. I thought the premise of setting up one camera shot for the seemingly one camera shot, I'm sure it wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
But it seemed to be. I counted an hour and 6 minutes into it before the first blackout. I became more obsessed with his camera technique than being immersed into the story of the horror of World War I through the eyes of this young man, who I thought, George McKay, was very, very good. I thought that he over-supplemented his piece with not an overwrought score, but maybe a score that could have been a little more nuanced. And Roger Deakins, a great cinematographer, I thought he was. I mean, what could they do? They're on one angle for the entire time, and how do you sort of get everything? I think you did get a lot through his face, George McKay's face, which was extraordinary.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's weird, but it's exactly what you said. I started thinking more about the technical challenge than I did the actual narrative, which I'm not sure was the intention. But long takes in film, I think it's almost impossible to tell a story in a single take, or to the appearance of a single take, without robbing some of the momentum, just because editing is interruption. It's action. Even if it's just changing the focus in a given moment, you're goosing the audience every time. We have to recalibrate.
Tell that to Tony Scott.
Yeah. Well, geez, I was having lunch with my family a couple of weeks ago, and Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 was on a television set over the bar in the distance, and I just kept counting quietly. It's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah.
I did the same thing with The Bourne Identity. I'm like, 2 seconds, that's it.
Oh,
2
the other
seconds.
ones, the Greengrass films, right?
Yeah. It's crazy.
And Greengrass, to me, is one of the greatest living directors, particularly for actors, because he lets them roam free.
I'm really into improvisation. I've had a couple of buddies work in his films, and he's always into that. But I could not believe the edit cuts. 1, 2, 1, 1.
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2. I mean, really?
With Supremacy specifically, it felt like he was trying to disorient us to the point of like incomprehensibility, and I don't know that tactic works as well as he thinks it does.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's visceral and kinetic in the action sequences, and then when you actually watch people think, it's just like cut. You can't see somebody's eyes.
Yeah. I mean, and this was too much maybe of the eyes. I don't know. Too much of the cows. Too much of the animals in the farm, the fires, the plane. I mean, it was striking images. You know, a plane coming down into that barn and engulfing them engulfing the German soldier in flames, and it was surprising. He goes away to deal for help, comes back. His buddy is being stabbed. He's dead within the next few minutes. I mean, it was shocking in that sense. I've never heard an individual speak more eloquently about directing and his aesthetic, and how what's important to him in terms of filmmaking. I auditioned for him for a play in New York one time, and normally they don't give a shit, you know. But he said to me, he pointed out what he thought was positive with me, which I thought was cool. They never do that. Here's what you have. You have a nice stillness and a quality on stage that, I sound like I'm bragging. I don't mean to be. I'm not like that. But
it's okay.
I'm just telling you the way
process,
he works with actors. He's clearly very good with actors. But I don't know. That film, to me, I just wasn't emotionally moved by the film.
Yeah,
because of his technique of the one continuous shot throughout.
I think it deadens you a little bit as a viewer. We screened it at Secret Movie Club at the Lightbox in December. That was our big surprise for the audience. And Piers Handling and I did a Q&A afterwards. And what was really fascinating to me was hearing the audience who really liked it also sort of come to grips with the fact that it wasn't the movie they wanted it to be.
What did they want it to be?
I think they wanted something with a much more dynamic victory at the end. Just the idea that we're left in silence didn't.
But it is an inherent victory. I mean, it's a race, and he wins the race.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost heroic. It's just everything but the swelling music happens toward the end, you know?
But then you have the swelling music, right? And it kind of mutes that, I think. The fact that you have this huge crescendo and this big, you know, the shot that's circulating on every social media platform right now, which is
him running?
Yeah, how they shot it versus what was actually the result. With these,
how did they shoot it?
It is one continuous take of him running up and over the trenches.
Right, and him bashing into other actors and getting up.
And it's all very expertly choreographed, and there are people who are the actors are real. They didn't use CG like busts for him to bounce off of and turn into soldiers. But there are flash pots basically where the explosion craters are. The craters they're already there because he's running past the thing that's going to puff up. And it's a big black rectangle with the pyro stuff inside of it. And it's fascinating to see that. But it's also, I mean, it sort of takes, obviously, you're not watching this happen. It's not real. We're watching a digital and celluloid simulacrum of the actual war. But it surprisingly, it just made me think of it as choreography rather than performance.
That's a great point.
I wonder if that's
what I got too. It's like a dance piece almost, you know. I really wasn't emotionally involved in his journey. I know, it's horrible to say.
Yeah.
I mean, also what's interesting is that there's very little in terms of documentation about the First World War. So I loved it for that. I wanted to know what it was like to be in the trenches, experience. You know, I did get the muck and the wet and, you know, the rats and all of that. My grandfather was in World War I and went to sleep in a trench with a gas mask and woke up with his best buddy, and he couldn't get out from under him. He had experienced rigor mortis. He was dead because he hadn't worn a gas mask. I just, you know, there's a lot of documentation about World War II, obviously, and Vietnam and the Korean War, but not a lot about World War I. So for that, I found it interesting. But anyway, it's on everybody's 10 best lists, and it'll probably won the Golden Globe for best drama, but it doesn't say much.
And screenplay.
Yeah. And screenplay?
Oh no, it didn't. Sorry, it's nominated now for original screenplay.
Yeah.
But Christy Wilson Cairns, who did the podcast when the film came through town. She picked Shallow Grave, and anybody listening should go listen to that because it's really great. We had like 27 minutes and we filled it. Talked very quickly, and it was good. But she was saying that a lot of the individual incidents were drawn from stories that Mendes' grandfather had told him.
Yes, of course. Thus the piece at the end. Dedication at the end.
But then they found echoes of the stories in other pieces here and there. There's a lot of... there's an archival history, I guess it's in the Imperial War Museum, but there are individual stories. And the BBC actually released a lot of their archive of audio interviews to Peter Jackson for his doc.
I know, which was an amazing doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. And I gather they get a lot of their information through that. Or Mendes did, so.
Yeah, and apparently the most terrific image is related, is from someone's story, which is putting your hand into someone and just having it go right through, which is so early in the film too. I think there are a couple of things that he does structurally visually and in terms of the script, that really sell the rest of the film for me.
Like what?
One of them is introduce you to the horror right away. And, he's cut his hand, oh, that's going to be bad. And then just to stuff it into someone's corpse, which is even worse. It just makes you wonder if anybody got out of this thing with all of their arms and legs. Just a little bit of body horror. And the other thing is the way that the first camouflaged cut, or the join in the trenches when he's walking down and in, even before he sees the general, is really, really obvious. There's a soldier's back who just someone gets in front of the camera and stands there for maybe a third of a second, just long enough for us to know that's where they're swapping out. That hides all the other... Your brain starts looking for that rather than the more invisible digital camera.
What did you think about all the so-called star actors playing character parts in
It's a gimmick, right? It jazzes it up a way. It's a way to sell people. But I thought the actors did fairly good jobs of it. Mark Strong, particularly.
He's fantastic.
Who shows up in the middle, is the one person who seems genuinely compassionate and interested.
Yeah,
and then
he takes his time at that last line to say, whatever he says, which just sells it. I agree, and that's hard stuff to do. I was just in an Aaron Sorkin film where Aaron Sorkin was panning around to these great character actors who all have 3-4 lines, and then they come to me, and it's just like, I was so panicked performing in front of these great character actors, I blanked, which is horrific, because everyone has got their shit down. Mark Rylance, Sacha Baron Cohen, Eddie Redmayne, Mark Strong, and then JC MacKenzie, and I was horrified to the point where I had to write the lines down on my hand and do one of these as the camera's coming around just so I could remember. It was just awful. It's just now that's odd. That's odd. Normally I don't have difficulty, but in a setting like this around a courtroom,
could it work?
But I thought about, I only bring that up because I thought about these actors coming in for their very small bits, having had a continuous shot. Of course, that wasn't the case. I found out later on. But talk about pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, you got one actor screwing up 2 lines, and okay, let's go back to the beginning. And the lead actor going, come on, get your shit together.
I did notice that almost all of them are in confined spaces where it would be possible to start the take on the way in or out. I think
that's
Strong is outside a lot, and Andrew Scott is outside.
Yeah.
But Firth and Cumberbatch are both isolated.
Yeah. I thought Firth is great, too.
Yeah.
Anything he does is great.
I had the feeling watching it that you could actually watch other movies about those characters. Like, it feels like we're intruding on their movie in a weird way, just because of the way the camera runs up to them.
Yeah.
And there's always some business happening. There's something going on.
Maybe that's the point.
Yeah.
Andrew, what's his name from Fleabag, too?
Andrew Scott.
Just fascinating performer.
Yeah. He's great because he does not... Whatever the role is, he refuses to give you what the role demands, which I find fascinating. He makes it work for him.
Definitely.
I mean, Moriarty and Sherlock just got bigger and bigger and bigger because they kept bringing him back, and I think he was just trying to find the ceiling there. But what he does here is just, like, he's not clipped. He's not the upper class British lieutenant we're told to expect in these movies. I mean, none of them is, except maybe for Firth.
Yeah.
And he's just like, get out of the way, get moving, keep going.
Well, he seems also slightly unbalanced.
I wonder
like
if
he's just off. I mean, that last clip of him just laughing and shaking his head, it's such an odd actor move.
That's what I'm saying. That's his energy.
Yeah, that's his energy. It's so good in Fleabag. Best performance I've seen all year.
Oh, wow, really?
Oh, my God, that love story. I've never seen a better love story.
Yeah.
A genuine connection between 2 actors who have chemistry. How difficult is that? It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
But that's her friend. She chose him. They've known one another for many, many years. So,
yeah. I've heard nothing but positive things about him ever since
I've heard him interviewed
right?
now several times. He's just a mensch.
Yeah. And he's
kind, he's smart, he knows what he's talking about. He's empathetic, he does stage.
And he's got that, well, I think that's why, right? He's got that listening quality. He can actually be present. I think that's why Fleabag works so well. He really is listening to her. He's not just faking it and waiting for his line.
No, and that's the key. I mean, I find 75% of these performances, no one's listening to one another. I mean, it's what you learn in acting school, but nobody does.
Yeah. Is it because the camera's not on him? Is it one of those senses they're, they're waiting to be sharper and closer?
I don't know. I mean, I tell young actors all the time, just listen, it's half the battle. That's half your work right there. It's just your response to what they're doing. It's like, that's why Sandy Meisner was so good. It's like looking at, seeing, and it's all subtext. It's not in the lines. It's like, what's going on? Does this person like me? That was passive aggressive. I didn't like that. Fuck you. I'm gonna go after you. So it's interesting. Yeah, he does that well.
And I think maybe too, it's also important to have actors who are that receptive in this film, because we're watching so many of them from over somebody else's shoulder. I mean, McKay, I'm not sure I like George McKay. I've seen him in a bunch of films, and he always
too much of a cipher.
He always has the same expression. So maybe he just kind of looks,
seems like a big dumb young guy, or what?
Just like he's about to cry. He's sort of unsteady in a way that I find.
Well, that's not so bad.
Well, no, but if it's the same
if
thing,
it's one note
over and over and over again.
I haven't seen him in anything else. Like what?
Captain Fantastic. He was
Never
Viggo
watched
Mortensen's
that.
oldest.
What's Captain Fantastic?
It's an interesting kind of misfire. It's a drama about Viggo Mortensen as a sort of checked out father who lives in a bus in the woods with a bunch of his kids. Yeah,
I saw he was nominated for Academy Award, wasn't he?
McKay was the oldest kid.
He was?
Yeah.
That's where I've seen him.
Probably.
But much younger.
Yeah, 3 years ago maybe.
Yeah. I mean, how old a kid is he?
I think he's in his early 20s. He was just in something else too.
I know. Wasn't he in
this week?
The war film 2 years ago with
Journey's End?
No.
That one?
No. Colin Firth was in it too. What was it? Who directed it? The great British director.
This is why we have the internet. I'm going to look it right up, because otherwise we'll be talking in circles. This has happened before. Don't feel bad.
Okay, it was like I think it was last year or 2 years ago. War film, brilliantly photographed. Nolan, was it a Nolan directed film?
Dunkirk. He's not in that.
He's not?
No, I'm almost positive.
Okay. Thought I saw him in that.
He was in Pride. A few years ago, about a Pride March in the UK. Oh, it was the other film he was in this year was The True History of the Kelly Gang, which played at TIFF.
Never saw it.
No, me neither. I missed it. But he played Ned Kelly, surrounded by Essie Davis and Nicholas Hoult, Thomas and Mackenzie. I'm just reading from the IMDb at this point.
Yeah.
That was Justin Kurzel's new film. He's the guy who did Macbeth and Assassin's Creed. And Where Hands Touch, which I did not care for.
Never saw it.
It's Amma Asante's film about a mixed-race German girl in World War II who falls for the son of a Nazi officer who is himself a Nazi, and he played that. And again, the sort of uncertain, gormless thing he does with his face really worked against that character who you need to read. You need to know where he's coming from. And he just looked confused all the time. And maybe that's what people want. I mean, I don't mean to completely shit on George McKay. I think he's actually pretty good when he's used properly, but I do find that lack of
That's interesting.
range.
It didn't bother me that much.
And he's good in this because, as you say, to play a cipher, to play someone we don't know, he's well cast.
Yeah. And who's the other kid? Never seen him.
No, he was a new one to me as well, I think. I'm just looking up the name on the Dean Charles Chapman, who I don't know that I've seen in anything before. And kind of, there's that thing where if you're watching a two-hander with someone you know and someone you don't know, that the person you don't know isn't going to be around for that long.
Yeah,
but
they're going to be killed shortly.
I was sort of hoping that, Blake, Lance Corporal Blake, would make it through if one of them had to die, because then the one who hasn't seen action and the one who is underprepared would be more interesting to watch for me.
Sure, it's more compelling.
Well, that's just me being... he apparently was not an unknown. He was just in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, which I didn't watch.
I never watched an episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I watched the first season.
How was it?
Pretty rapey.
Rapey?
Very misogynistic. That just got worse and worse.
Wow.
They built on the thing from The Sopranos, what they called sexposition, which is that if you're going to have long chunks of exposition, you have nude women around to distract the viewers. Which...
Is that it?
Yeah, that's a thing. And I don't care for it.
I watched one episode of The Sopranos. It was in a pool hall, and that's right. There was a bunch of naked women around.
Bada Bing, right? The strip club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much every episode. That was just part of the manifest of that show.
Yeah. What's your show? What do you like?
Right now, The Good Place. Actually.
The Good Place.
The Good Place.
The
yeah.
sitcom.
The sitcom. Have you seen
Why?
it?
No, I don't. I don't watch sitcoms.
Okay, if I could describe
I do not
it,
want to watch. Is it a single camera sitcom?
It is. It's a single cam. It's from Mike Schur, who made Parks and Recreation and The Office, and
Great shows.
yeah, and this is his film. This is his opera. It's about what we owe to each other. It's a philosophy text in sitcom form. The concept is that four people.
The thing with Ted Danson.
Yeah. Four people die. We don't see that. We open with the afterlife, and we follow it through the eyes of Kristen Bell's character, who is self-described an Arizona trash bag who has been mistakenly admitted to the good place because she shares the same name as a truly good person. So she's told right away that...
But she's a bad person.
She's just a jerk. She's a selfish, self-absorbed person. And she has to figure out how to justify her presence. And one of the other people there with her is a Nigerian philosophy professor who has been assigned to her. Basically, the premise is that they're soulmates. And he's an ethics professor. And
the young kid?
Yeah, he's in his
30s?
Yeah,
I saw him on stage in New York. He's a great actor.
Yeah, the Zoe Kazan's play.
Yeah. You see that?
I did not.
It's so brilliant.
I really wanted
Zoe
to.
Kazan?
Yeah, she's
Genius.
amazing.
She's my favorite actress.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, I think she's amazing and so undervalued.
She's incredible. I keep trying to get her on this. She's agreed, but we just never had the scheduling
Really?
right. Yeah, I'll get her. There's a bunch of really great stuff out there.
And what film do you like? What film do you like this season? And you can say whatever you want. I know I'm in one, but you don't have to like it.
Parasite and Knives Out are the ones I'm recommending to people
I haven't
right
seen Knives
now.
Out. I've seen Parasite. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, Knives Out's a lot of fun.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the same thing Rian Johnson did with Brick and with Looper and with The Brothers Bloom and even with The Last Jedi. He just takes an existing genre that we think we understand.
Turns it on its head.
Well, yeah, and also celebrates why we love it, which is the best. Like, Knives Out is really just an Agatha Christie whodunit with a sense of perspective.
Yeah.
And kind of the how can I explain it? The colonialism of Christie becomes the Make America Great Again movement in this, and he's managed to keep all of those things and also quietly just point out why they should never have been acceptable quirks in the first place in his work. Branagh sort of does the same thing with Murder on the Orient Express, but...
Oh, I heard that was not good.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, it is.
It's whodunit.
It is, and it's very much in love with the David Lean mode of filmmaking of the old school big roadshow. Look at us, we're shooting in camera 65 on sound stages.
Yeah.
But it's got it's Branagh, so it has a love for acting, just a larger than life performance thing.
Yeah.
John Hodgman did that one for this podcast. We're going to get back to this eventually, the purpose. But yeah, I think we're in a place now where entertainment in general is becoming self-aware in a way that I really respond to. The ones that do it from a place of love rather than a place of irony. This is what I love so much about Agatha Christie. Let me show you how much fun I can have making these actors bounce off of each other.
Yeah.
That works for Branagh and for Johnson.
Sure. Well, it's very theatrical. And Branagh is a theater rat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Johnson, he isn't stagey in the same way that the Branagh film is, with sort of there's this slightly operatic pitch. But he does love just watching actors be silly. Daniel Craig just does this magnificent Cajun accent.
He does?
Playing Benoit Blanc, which is their version of Poirot and their version of every sleuth ever.
Right.
But Craig is having so much fun with the accent that I'm almost positive he's putting it on as the character. The character is faking it too.
Yeah.
And it never cracks, and you just keep waiting for it. And that becomes part of the play.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just those little moments of actors distinguishing themselves. Again, like what Strong does. Even Cumberbatch, who has been in 1917, who's introduced as someone we shouldn't trust, simply taking that pause becomes weighted and nervy. It's kind of great.
Yeah, whether he's going to go for it or not.
Yeah, simply do the right thing or not.
Yeah.
And we've watched enough senseless carnage at that point that it's entirely possible there will just be more of it.
Right.
And I have to admit, Mendes being Mendes, I thought he was going to go for the downbeat ending. I thought that would make, more of a statement.
Right.
Because the war will go on for another year, obviously. We know that. Or a year and a half.
1917.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out if this is actually all a setup for the classic, downbeat ending where everybody dies because that's the way it happened, man. Except that it's also Sam Mendes wanting to please the crowd, so we have to have a victory.
Did you like his first film that won the Academy Award?
American Beauty.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of colored now in the rearview mirror. Well, no, everything that has happened, including Alan Ball just turning out to only have one note to play about the miserable lives of the upper middle class. I went right into 6 Feet Under and everything else. It feels now very much like a manufactured independent film that was produced by a studio. There's a gloss to it that I don't think has dated terribly well.
Oh.
But at the time, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I thought it. I don't know that it was saying anything, but it was really entertaining.
Yeah,
and
I've never seen a bag be more compelling in my life.
It works, right? Like it sells you on it.
Every time I see a bag floating in the air, I think of that film.
Yeah,
just magically taking on a life of its own.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little while before I can watch it without the Kevin Spacey factor. I mean, that's retroactively colored a lot of stuff.
What the hell is that man doing?
Yeah, it's just
those monologues at Christmas Eve are just they got to go.
Yeah,
man.
I have not seen those. I know about them.
So creepy and weird. I did an episode of House of Cards. It was odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it with him or before?
Yeah, with
before
him.
Or after?
Yeah.
I interviewed him in 94, I guess it was, before The Usual Suspects. He'd made a movie called Swimming with Sharks.
Sure,
maybe it was
of course. It's a great movie.
Yeah, maybe it was 93. And he charmed me. I mean, that was what he does, right? Like, he works people.
Yeah, he does.
out.
Yeah, he's an entertainer.
Mm.
Yeah, complete with accents and impressions, and he's an interesting guy. I won't say too much about him.
Yeah, I don't.
I think he's a clever, very, very, very good actor who's deeply troubled now, and God knows, I think he might be accepted back into the theater world before television
so?
film. Yeah, I think they're more forgiving, if you will, and they want box office.
Mm.
It's a draw.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Bill Cosby was touring before he got.
Yeah, he was pilloried, though. I mean, people
but he was
screaming at him. Yeah,
but he was still drawing crowds, right?
I went to a Bill Cosby concert, in my early 20s at the National Arts Center in Ottawa.
Oh, yeah.
And I was laughing so hard, I had to leave my seat and go into the lobby and put my hands on my knees, and I looked up, and there were hundreds of other men in the exact same position because he was so funny.
Yeah. It's gutting, isn't it, when someone whose work you enjoy suddenly becomes
a pariah.
Well, tainted. Yeah, the work becomes tainted by that, and the person is a pariah.
Boy, does it ever. I mean, you'll never look at Bill Cosby again.
No. But, yeah, I mean, Kevin Spacey retroactively kind of wrecks, for now, American Beauty. I just have no interest in watching it again. I'll push myself to watch Baby Driver again, because I love Edgar Wright, but and he's not the lead. That's probably part of it. But I think is it Scott Aukerman? I hope it was Scott Aukerman, because I'm associating it with him. And the idea is that you are allowed to like the stuff you liked before you knew.
Sure, of course.
And then after that...
Look at Woody Allen.
Yeah, if you're defending it... Well, Woody Allen's even worse, because if you look back, all of that stuff is in his movies.
It is. But it was acceptable.
Yep. Yeah.
So we as a society are as to blame, for not more than Woody Allen, for God's sake.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how to handle a lot of it, because... There are things about Annie Hall and Manhattan that and even Husbands and Wives.
Manhattan, particularly.
Well, Manhattan.
He's dating a 17-year-old.
Yeah, and you can't get away from it. It's the one time in all of his movies that a character dates someone that much younger, and that they're called out on it. It's still forgiven within the film.
Yeah.
But it's the only time he confronts it as a filmmaker.
Right.
And I've always kind of wondered about that. Is that what makes it okay? Because he calls it out, that he allows himself to continue doing it?
Tainted watching Annie Hall now that you know what he is, or what he's the allegations against him?
I think it's a harder job to watch it. I haven't watched it since, but
Annie Hall?
Yeah, I'd like
to.
Well, he's still there.
He's still there doing what, though?
It's the idea that, you know what it is? It's like looking... This is a terrible analogy, but it's like looking at newsreel footage of someone who hasn't killed anyone yet, but who did. Because, again, I'm not accusing him of murder.
No. What are you accusing him of?
the creepiness of it.
Of what?
Just
Marrying his stepdaughter?
Well, that's creepy too. But
Because that factually is the only thing that went on. I mean, of course he did make movies about a lecherous older men going after younger women, and
a lot of those movies. Well, that's what I mean. It's the whether or not the Dylan Farrow accusations are true, and I don't know either. I think that she believes it.
I definitely think she believes it.
But I also
as does her brother.
Yeah, but I don't know. This came up when Jeremy Lalonde did the Annie Hall episode. I don't want to defend Alan, not because it might be true, but I don't want to defend him because the response to it, everything else he's done, the way he's doubled down on making shitty movies these last 15 years that still make the same core argument of if an artist wants to do something, an artist should be allowed to do it. That makes me wonder. And also,
is he so obtuse that he couldn't have done what they're
no,
they're alleging?
It makes me wonder if it is possible.
Well,
because he can his films are all about the justification of bad behavior, and it's just like, how high does it escalate?
But that's inherently human, and what makes drama is that it's compelling and it's conflictual and it's it's adversarial and
sure.
What do you? It's not supposed to be roses and balloons.
Oh yeah, but I guess my larger problem with him creatively, all of the personal stuff aside, as much as you can separate the art from the artist, is that he makes the same movie over and over again, and it's become less and less interesting.
I agree with that.
If his insistence on justifying himself is stemming from that, just creative emptiness.
I mean, he is in his 80s.
Yeah. But,
which isn't to say, there are great 80-year-olds making great films.
Yeah, Martin Scorsese's 78.
He's 78.
He is arguably making the same kind of movie.
He is.
But he's doing it with way more...
Although this was different.
Yeah, I think this and Silence, like The Irishman and Silence, are the sort of two great pieces. Like everything he does is... not everything he does, but he's made a dozen masterpieces. Masterworks, whatever you want to call it. But I think Silence and The Irishman are in real communication with each other.
What are the masterworks? Raging Bull,
Goodfellas, Taxi Driver. I would fight pretty hard for Kundun.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I loved it. I saw that at the Uptown One way back when. It was a screen fairly late. I remember that. It was like a 10 a.m. December screening, and I was sort of braced to not like it, because it sounded like a leap for him, and I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, talking about a man.
And Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which no one ever talks about.
It's a great film.
Just a lovely little movie.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, you were about to say something.
No, I wasn't. I have no thoughts. Who do you like as a young director?
The Safdie brothers right now.
Great. Didn't see it. Uncut Gems.
Good Time. Have you seen Good Time?
No.
They're kind of the same movie in a weird way that it's echoing the Woody Allen and the Scorsese thing. They do one thing, but they do it exquisitely well, which is to manufacture anxiety.
Wow.
You will watch Uncut Gems wondering if you're having a stroke.
Really?
You're
tightening up.
Yeah, your whole body contorts.
Huh? Wow.
It'll be on Netflix by the time this comes out, so anybody listening who hasn't seen it should definitely see it.
Great.
And Good Time is probably... it's like the embryonic execution of it. It's the same kind of thing. It takes place over less time. It's like a one-night story. Mm-hmm. And it has more going on, I think, overtly in its privilege, in commentary on class and privilege, because the point of Robert Pattinson's character is that everyone else he affects is a lesser than to him. He ruins about half a dozen lives in the course of trying to do the right thing, which is not the right thing. It's what he wants to do. And Uncut Gems has sort of the same thing going on, but without that extra layer of...
What's it called?
Good Time.
Good Time.
2 words.
Good Times.
It was on Netflix. I'm not sure if it still is.
Huh, okay.
But
check it out.
The Safdies... I mean, Edgar Wright, still pretty young. He's only been working for 15 years.
Yeah.
Probably... I mean, he's the guy who makes movies that I feel were made for me personally. They make me so happy.
What about Canadian directors?
There's a bunch. I'm getting to the point now where we're just being flooded with, like, it's finally happening now. The movement from Telefilm 2-3 years ago to get the micro-budget films out, we're starting to see them. And so people like Kazak Radwanski and Calvin Thomas and Yona Lewis, who made White Lie, And Kaz's new film is called Anne at 13,000 Feet. These are people I've known casually for 5 or 6 years at least, coming out with movies that are fulfilling their potential. Molly McGlynn, who made Mary Goes Round a couple of years ago, this great little movie set in Niagara Falls with Aya Cash as a woman who goes home because her father is dying, and she has to she goes home because her father is dying, and she meets the half-sister she never really liked. She knew but didn't really like, and it's all about kind of breaking cycles and reconciling. It's a great performance and also a really good movie around it. Oh, God damn it. Nicole, director of Black Conflux. It's about two people on a collision course, a guy in his late 20s who is harboring awful misogynistic thoughts, and a young girl, like a teenager who's 16, 17, who's just starting to figure out what puberty and adolescence have led her to and who she is. And it's set in 1987 in Newfoundland, and it's...
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's really strong.
Wow.
Also has an amazing single take.
Really?
Not the whole film, but
Yeah.
there's a take in the midsection, which is one of those great fluid ones that you don't really realize is a oneer.
Oh.
Follows someone...
So it doesn't take you out of it.
No, it's really effective.
Huh?
Follows someone into a bar where Gowan's Strange Animal is playing. Sorry.
What's the purpose of the shot?
It sets up a fight. But it follows someone into this bar. It's a Criminal Mind, I think, which is a commentary on the character as much as it is on the moment in time. Dance floor's crowded. There's all this stuff going on, and then you gradually realize we're still with him. It's the Copacabana shot in Goodfellas, in, through, and out. But it works beautifully.
Wow.
And then it stops, and you go back to the movie, and you're sort of left with the energy of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, to get back to 1917, I think that's the one thing that Mendes doesn't account for. If you're going constantly, the tension, like the tension has to come from things in the shot.
It was just
Right?
too self-conscious. I was too aware of what was going on, as opposed to being engulfed in the story. Losing myself in the story, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's the same. Did you see Spectre?
No.
The Bond film he made, the second one? It opens with a single take that goes on for, I want to say, 7 minutes.
Yeah, but you got plane crashes and people, doing flips and,
It ends with a building collapsing underneath him, and we go down with the camera. And that was when I started thinking, okay, first of all, this is the beginning of the movie, so none of this can matter. This is the pre-credit sequence.
Sure.
That's your
So
standard.
it's like a typical Bond sequence.
Bond rule, yeah. But at the same time, all I was thinking about is, is someone standing on a platform? Is there, take me away. Take me into the moment.
Yeah.
The ending of, speaking of Brenna, the credits out in Much Ado About Nothing. If you remember that, that's like 25 years ago as well.
Yeah, a long time ago.
It ends with the camera running through the celebratory dance at the end of the movie. Everybody just starts dancing together because the movie is over, and this is a celebration of Beatrice and Benedict finally getting together, and there's this, and the marriage of Hero has just gotten married. I can't remember to whom, but everybody's happy, and it's splendid and lovely, and they run through these people, and then suddenly, somehow, without even noticing it, you're above them and going up, and obviously the Steadicam operator's standing on a crane. And it takes 30 seconds to register that you're too high, that the shot is still continuing, that how did this happen? I went back and watched it again, like theatrically, sat through the whole movie just to watch that shot to make sure I hadn't hallucinated it. And it's exhilarating. I mean, that's the use of a single take to give you something.
Sure. Yeah.
And with 1917 and with Spectre, it's show-offy in a way that I don't know it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you see Atonement?
Yep.
Joe Wright's film, which has that single take of Dunkirk.
Yeah.
So I just had that feeling that that Mendes had gone to see Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk and then thought, wait a minute, didn't somebody do this in a single
I can
take?
do that.
And then
I can do that throughout.
the pieces came together.
For 2 hours.
Yeah. And I don't want to suggest that he's doing it for personal glory, because I don't think that's true. I think he thought he had a way into the story that hadn't been tried
So
before.
how did they do that?
Single take.
Yeah. It's not a single take.
Yeah, a lot of carefully concealed edits, a lot of green screen, a lot of CG. I mean, I think at this point you don't even need green screen to CG stuff in. That clip that's going around of the trench run, there are crowds that don't exist.
individual soldiers, actors running past him, that happens. But then there is another 50 guys in every shot.
Oh,
that
I
aren't
see.
There.
Right, they're not there.
You can just pop things in.
Oh, interesting.
They've also digitally erased, which no one mentions in any of these conversations that I've seen about it. They've digitally erased the camera. Not the camera. They've digitally erased the truck that the camera is on because it's leaving tracks, and they're gone.
Oh,
it's just so much of it is.
You didn't feel sick at the beginning or feel nauseated?
No, I don't have that. I don't have that.
I
reaction.
did a little bit, and I thought I'm in trouble.
How long did it take to?
About 5 minutes, and then I was into it. And then I thought it was interesting, and then I thought it wasn't interesting. So
yeah,
but
people do have problems with that sort of sustained motion shot thing. But
yeah, Birdman was kind of like that for me.
Yeah. Oh, Birdman was. You want to talk about a single take I hate?
Why?
Because it doesn't matter. In that case, like 1917, at the very least, is people have compared it to Call of Duty because it's a front perspective video game. But what 1917 does is immerse you in a world that doesn't exist. In Birdman, I think Inarritu just does it because he can, and he's enamored with it. But it keeps showing you things that are not only distracting but retroactively pointless. I mean, whenever anyone told me how Birdman doesn't have a wasted moment in it, I would always say, okay, what about the scene where his wife and his girlfriend almost kiss? What is that there for? They hate each other. The idea that Inarritu just thinks that if only two attractive women would sit still for 5 seconds, they would be attracted to each other.
My friend Amy Ryan is in it. I said, what was that like? She goes, oh man, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure because you don't want to fuck it up. Camera's coming toward you. Here's my bit. It's not long. 3 lines. We're going to move on. Don't fuck it up.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be happy as a filmmaker until he kills a grip. Like his pursuit of realism and his insistence on doing things the only way they can be done. It just doesn't that block you off from other possibilities? Like the thing about The Revenant where they ran over time by months and had to move from Alberta to I think Argentina because they lost winter because he would only shoot during magic hour.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh?
Like we live in an era he does it himself where you can color correct digitally.
Sure,
you don't have to do this to people.
Yeah. You got a fake bear. Why not a fake climate?
And he was lying about the bear.
Why? What do you mean? It wasn't
real.
a live bear?
He was saying that we had a real bear on set. No, and they released green screen images of the guy in the suit.
Oh.
And he insists like everything has to be super real and super practical.
That was a frightening scene, that bear scene.
Honestly, I could tell he was on a gurney.
You were?
Yeah. Well, no, I could tell DiCaprio was on a...
viciously being ripped apart.
Yeah, and he acted it. I mean, he performed it, but you could also... There's a... it's the same thing that happens in Forrest Gump when they pick up Gary Sinise and his center of gravity isn't where it should be.
Yeah, don't mention Forrest Gump.
I'm not a fan either.
No.
But there are things that people do compensate for in CG, and there are things that people don't know they have to yet. I mean, this year alone, with Gemini Man and The Irishman and Cats, these are all films that were heavily CG'd.
Did the CG stuff in The Irishman bother you?
It did.
How
but it's
so?
because I think it's because I saw it in a theater, and the larger the scale, the more time you have to look at how it doesn't work.
Look too waxy. Look too what?
You're seeing sometimes it just the faces weren't on the bodies properly. I mean, there's a moment where Joe Pesci leans in to fix the engine.
Yeah, at the beginning.
And the light falls across him in a way that you can tell that his head and his neck aren't together.
Oh, interesting.
It's just weird. But the other thing is that the algorithm, whatever it is, and this is what I meant about the stuff that they shot on Faith, the algorithm doesn't correct for cartilage. Like your nose and your ears are bigger when you're 70 than they are when you're 25.
Sure, of course.
And so what you get is from shot to shot, you get these weird Dumbo versions of people where their features are too big.
Uh-huh.
And De Niro, I love him, but he's an old man, and when he tries to act like a younger man and do things quickly, the body doesn't make it.
I agree with that. When he's chucking rocks into the water, it's like...
Yeah.
It's like an 80-year-old dude doing it. But
the curb stomping, which does not work at all because
when
his hips are bothering him. You can tell.
Right, yeah, I know. That's the only thing that kind of bothered me. And I apparently he addressed it. He addressed it with Pacino and De Niro. He said, you got to move move younger.
Yeah, they had an age guy on set. They had someone there to tell them how old they had to be.
When you go up the stairs, you got to move younger. Yeah, fast.
Yeah. They get so married to this concept of being able to do something that they convince themselves it'll work. And then in the end, we're stuck with the results.
Yeah, but it's a press point. They can sell it. It didn't bother me that much.
Yeah.
The only thing that bothered me was them as I say, not being able to physicalize their youth. But
And we also know what they looked like at those ages. That's the other problem, too, with using these actors, right?
Yeah.
We know what 22-year-old Robert De Niro looked like.
Yeah,
we all
yeah,
saw
yeah.
Mean Streets.
Yeah.
That scene at Anzio, which I looked it up, the real guy was supposed to be 25 years old, and De Niro looks 40 at the youngest.
Yeah.
Because he's that
it
big,
was
husky
hard.
guy.
Yeah, it was hard to peg their ages throughout. I didn't know what age they were supposed to be.
Yeah. When you do the math, it gets weird, because I think he's supposed to be like in his 90s at the end. But
I think his performance is completely underappreciated.
De Niro, oh yeah.
I mean, that scene he has with Hoffa's wife at the end on the phone, where he's empathetically not apologizing, but he's
trying to explain himself, right? Just without saying it.
He's at a loss of words. It's almost poetic the way he emotionally runs through that monologue, and he just keeps talking, blathering.
Yeah, no,
just to fill in the silence and the awkwardness.
Yeah, it's a stunning performance. I mean, I'm not surprised it isn't getting awards traction just because it's not showy.
It's not showy because he's playing a factotum, a common man who happens to be killing people.
Yeah, and he doesn't.
But he's not like Pacino. It's not like this, not blowhardy, but this larger than life type of Jimmy Hoffa performance.
Or what Pesci's doing, which is taking himself
amazing.
all the way
I
in.
think Pesci's like astonishing in that film.
Yeah, and they're all
talk about a quiet, evil man.
Yeah, and then you have Anna Paquin, who has almost no dialogue, or doesn't have any dialogue.
That
right?
didn't bother me.
No, she's incredible. There's a moment in that scene in the bank with him, with De Niro, where you actually get that she learned stuff from Hoffa. She learned control from him, which is such a great little observation, and it comes through only in her face. Like, it's not in the movie. Or not in the script, rather. It's just there in that moment.
Yeah.
I think the CG de-aging thing just got in the way for me.
It did.
Did you see it theatrically or on?
I saw it at the Beacon Theater in New York City.
So you did,
I took
okay.
my son and my wife.
And it wasn't a distraction?
We were sitting in the second row, so it was a little bizarre to get used to the first half hour.
Okay.
But once we got into it, we were like, it didn't bother me.
Yeah. It also goes away after the first
What's
hour.
that?
It's only there for an hour, right? Then you sort of sink into the...
Yeah, and then they sink into the old man stuff, you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the great thing about that film, you'll never see those guys again in the same frame. All of them, Pesci, De Niro, Pacino, Harvey Keitel. I mean,
yeah,
it's a great group of astonishingly iconic actors that changed the face of cinema.
Yeah, and it was wonderful to see them reunited for a movie that actually says something, as opposed to some of the other pictures that have put them together recently, like Righteous Kill and whatever
or
those
Heat
are.
or whatever.
Heat's great, but Heat's a different mode.
Right.
I would
It's
argue.
also 20 years ago, I guess.
25.
25, yeah.
Don't think about it.
Yeah, it's about regret, death, life,
No,
redemption.
I'm glad the Irishman turned out as well as it did. I just kept thinking,
Did the time bother you?
No, I didn't have a problem with it, even theatrically. I mean, I'm used to, it's incredible that we're having arguments over whether a movie is too long when people are binging for
Right, they're binging for 10 hours. Yeah, they're binging for a weekend.
Yeah, I was comfortable.
Yeah.
I saw it in the Lightbox in theater. I had to put it in 2 for us because it had Atmos. But it's the only room in the building with the Dolby Atmos
Oh, I
system.
see.
So I would have loved to see it in 1, but 2 was good. And it was comfortable. I had to go out and pee once.
Have you interviewed him?
Scorsese?
Yeah.
No, never.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to know what movie he would pick for this, but just to have a conversation about cinema in
He's
general.
an encyclopedia.
I know. Like, I want to bet it would be, like La Notte or something like that, something he has a personal feel for.
Sure, of
but
course.
he might just as easily pick, I don't know, Public Enemy or something else that shaped him. Yeah. Half the fun of this is finding out what people choose.
Who'd you have to discuss All the President's Men with?
Oh, Lucas Neff, who's an actor. He's in Marriage Story this year, actually.
What's he playing that?
He's the camera operator, or the grip that Scarlett Johansson sleeps with in the car.
Oh yeah, he's cool. He's good.
Yeah,
lovely actor.
He's a lovely guy. Yeah,
Yeah, he's Canadian.
No, he was in town with a movie.
Oh,
he was here for something at Inside Out, I think. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Great movie. Pakula. Is that?
Yeah,
Directed it.
Yeah, right off that incredible run of conspiracy pictures he was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's of a piece with the Parallax View in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean that's what I grew up watching, those films. That's what I was glued into, character-driven dramas.
Yeah. Well, they made them then.
They made them and they were financed, supported. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the idea that major studios were putting out stuff like Downhill Racer still kind of amazes me. Just because it's...
Even Bobby Deerfield.
Yeah.
Like weird shit, you know?
Would that have been the thing where Pacino's coming off The Godfather and wants to make this double
Definitely.
picture and they're okay with it?
Definitely. I could see the gleam and the ego and the confidence that he had at that point just dripping off him. He was just electrically star-like during that period of time.
Yeah. Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day
No one's
Afternoon.
picked Dog Day Afternoon yet.
What?
I know, right?
What?
It's weird, actually, now that you mention it.
That's weird.
Yeah.
He's so good in that.
Everybody is. I mean, I think that might be my favorite New York movie. It's either that or Pelham 123. Films that use the...
Use New York.
They use the city, but they also use the energy. Like, everybody's cranky. It's one more goddamn thing. In both movies, like, those films are about inconvenience more than anything else.
Yeah, all my friends who come to New York to live, I'm like, how you doing? And they're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. I said, wait. The city is like, it's like this visual and auditory assault when you first get there. And you are spent by the end of the day. But a year and a half, 2 years in, you're as crumbly and as cranky and as New York as you'll ever be.
Yeah. So the closer on the podcast is always the same as well, which is there anything of 1917 that, I guess now we have to use future tense because it's usually that you have borrowed or stolen or absorbed, but now is there anything that you will use?
You will use with what?
Just incorporate into, is there something in it that you would want to steal or riff on or add to? A pause, a hesitation, a technique?
In terms of acting?
Just, yeah, you personally.
Not really.
No?
No, I'm not really that fond of the film.
Okay.
I know that's a horrible thing to say to talk about a film.
It's fine.
Yeah, because I was so emotionally removed from it. So, I am compelled by George McKay and what he'll do in the future. I think he's got an interesting, odd face for a movie star. So, for that reason, it's nice to look at somebody not, perfect, with symmetrically perfect features.
Yeah.
So.
It's just that little gaping fish mouth. Just gets me. It looks like he's been hit with something. Which works in 1917, like the horror of it. But I guess if you're casting someone, and this is just, again, I'm sure my gut reaction to him as a visual presence. If you're casting someone who's seen some shit and doesn't want to talk about it, he should close his mouth more.
There you go.
I'm a monster. That's what it is.
You're tough. You're a tough monster.
My thanks to JC MacKenzie, whose fun new horror series October Faction is now streaming globally on Netflix. Thanks also to Jennifer Rushman. She knows what she did. And my apologies to Nicole Dorsey for forgetting her last name when we were talking about Black Conflux back then. I'm a dope. You can find JC on Twitter at JC MacKenzie, all one word, and you can find 1917 in theaters right now pretty much everywhere. It'll also be on 4K, Blu-ray, DVD, and all the streaming platforms sometime in, I'm guessing, April? As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or the show in general, say so. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever you've been enjoying us. Every little bit helps, it truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network. They're pretty good. Thanks for your support, and thanks for listening. See you next week.